Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more The Diary of Anne Frank. Yeah, we're getting there. We passed halfway, and we're getting further along. But yeah, Anne was suffering from a bit of a depressive spell last we saw. So let's go ahead and hop right back into this. Monday, December the 6th, 1943. Dearest Kitty, the closer it got to St. Nicholas Day, the more we all thought back to the last year's festively decorated basket. More than anyone, I thought it would be terrible to skip a celebration this year. After long deliberation, I finally came up with an idea, something funny. I consulted Pym, and a week ago we set to work writing a verse for each person. During evening at 7:45, we trooped upstairs carrying the big laundry basket, which had been decorated with cutouts and bows made of pink and blue carbon paper. On the top was a large piece of brown wrapping paper with a note attached. Everyone was rather amazed at the sheer size of the gift. I removed the note and read it aloud. Once again, St. Nicholas Day has even come to our hideaway. It won't be quite as fun, I fear, as the happy day we had last year. Then we were hopeful, no reason to doubt, that optimism would win the bout. And by the time this year came round, we'd all be free and safe and sound. Still, let's not forget it's St. Nicholas Day, though we've nothing left to give anyway, to give away. We'll have to find something else to do. So everyone please look in their shoe. As each person took their own shoe out of the basket, there was a roar of laughter. Inside each shoe was a little paper package addressed to the owner. Yours, Anne. Wednesday, December the 22nd, 1943. Dearest Kitty, a bad case of the flu has prevented me from writing to you until today. Being sick here is dreadful. With every cough, I had to duck under the basket once, twice, 3 times, and try to keep from coughing any more. Most of the time, the tickle refused to go away, so I had to drink milk with honey, sugar, or cough drops. I get dizzy just thinking about all the cures I've been subjected to. Sweating out the fever, steam treatment, wet compresses, dry compresses, hot drinks, swabbing my throat, lying still, heating pad, hot water bottles, lemonade, and every 2 hours the thermometer. Will these remedies really make you better? The worst part was when Mr. Dussel decided to play doctor and lay his pomaded head on my bare chest to listen to the sounds. Not only did his hair tickle, but I was embarrassed, even though he went to school 30 years ago and does have some kind of medical degree. Why should he lay his head on my heart? After all, he's not my boyfriend. For that matter, he wouldn't be able to tell a healthy sound from an unhealthy one. We'd have to have his ears cleaned first, since he's become alarmingly hard of hearing. But enough about my illness. I'm fit as a fiddle again. I've grown almost half an inch and gained 2 pounds. I'm pale, but itching to get back to my books. Namsweiss, the only word that will do here. We're all getting on well together. No squabbles, though that probably won't last long. There hasn't been such peace and quiet in this house for the last 6 months. Beth is still in isolation, but any day now her sister will no longer be contagious. For Christmas, we're getting extra cooking oil, candy, and molasses. For Hanukkah, Mr. Dussel gave Mrs. Von Don and Mother a beautiful cake, which he'd asked Miep to bake, on top of all the work she has to do. Margot and I received a brooch made out of a penny, all bright and shiny. I can't really describe it, but it's lovely. I also have a Christmas present for Miep and Bep. For a whole month, I saved up the sugar I put on my hot cereal, and Mr. Kleiman has used it to have fondant made. The weather is drizzly and overcast, and the stove stinks, and the food lies heavily on our stomachs, producing a variety of rumbles. The war is at an impasse. Spirits are low. Yours, Anne. Friday, December the 24th, 1943. Dear Kitty, as I've written you many times before, moods have a tendency to affect us quite a bit here. And in my case, it's been getting worse lately. Himmelhoch, Jock sind zu Tode beruht certainly applies to me. I'm on top of the world when I think about how fortunate we are and compare myself to other Jewish children. And in the depths of despair when, for example, Mrs. Kleiman comes by and talks about Jopie's hockey club, canoe trips, school plays, and afternoon teas with friends. I don't think I'm jealous of Jopie, but I long to have a really good time for once and to laugh so hard it hurts. We're stuck in this house like lepers, especially during winter and Christmas and New Year's holidays. Actually, I shouldn't even be writing this since it makes me seem so ungrateful, but I can't keep everything to myself, so I'll repeat what I said at the beginning. Paper is more patient than people. Whenever someone comes in from the outside with the wind in their clothes and the coat on their cheeks, I feel like burying my head under the blankets to keep from thinking, when will we be allowed to breathe fresh air again? I can't do that. On the contrary, I have to hold my head up high and put a bold face on things, but the thoughts keep coming anyway. Not just once, but over and over. Believe me, if you've been shut up for a year and a half, it can get to be too much for you sometimes. But feelings can't be ignored, no matter how unjust or ungrateful they seem. I long to ride a bike, dance, whistle, look at the world, feel young, and know th- that I'm free. And yet I can't let it show. Just imagine what would happen if all eight of us were to feel sorry for ourselves or walk around with the discontent clearly visible on our faces. Where would that get us? Sometimes I wonder if anyone will ever understand what I mean. If anyone will ever overlook my ingratitude and not worry about whether or not I'm Jewish and merely see me as a teenager badly in need of some good plain fun. I don't know. And I wouldn't be able to talk about it with anyone since I'm sure I'd start to cry. Crying can bring relief as long as you don't cry alone. Despite all my theories and efforts, I miss every day and every hour of the day having a mother who understands me. That's why, with everything I do and write, I imagine the kind of mom I'd like to be for my children later on. The kind of mom who doesn't take everything people say too seriously, but who does take me seriously. I find it difficult to describe what I mean, but the word mom says it all. Do you know what I've come up with? In order to give me the feeling of calling my mother something that sounds like mom, I often call her Momsy. Sometimes I shorten it to Moms. An imperfect mom. I wish I would honor her for removing the S. It's a good thing she doesn't realize this, since it would only make her unhappy. Well, that's enough of that. My writing has raised me somewhat from the depths of despair. Yours, Anne. It's a day after Christmas, and I can't help thinking about Pim and the story he told me this time last year. I don't understand the meaning of his words then as well as I do now. If only he'd bring it up again, I might be able to show him I understood what he meant. I think Pim told me because he, who knows the intimate secrets of so many others, needed to express his own feelings for once. Pim never talks about himself, and I don't think Margot has any inkling of what he's been through. Poor Pim. He can't fool me into thinking he's forgotten that girl. He never will. It's made him very accommodating since he's not blind to mother's faults. I hope I'm going to be a little like him without having to go through what he has. Anne. Monday, December the 27th, 1943. Friday evening, for the first time in my life, I received a Christmas present. Mr. Kleiman, Mr. Kugler, and the girls had prepared a wonderful surprise for us. Miette made a delicious Christmas cake with Peace 1944 written on top, and Bet made a batch of cookies that was up to pre-war standards. There was a jar of yogurt for Peter, Margot, and me, and a bottle of beer for each of the adults. And once again, everything was wrapped so nicely, with pretty pictures glued to the packages. For the rest, the holidays passed by quickly for us. Anne. Wednesday, December the 29th, 1943. I was very sad again last night. Grandma and Hanley came to see me once more. Grandma, oh, my sweet grandma, how little we understood what she suffered. How she always was, and what an interest she took in everything that concerned us. And to think that all that time she was carefully guarding her terrible secret. Grandma was always so loyal and good and would never have let any of us down. Whatever happened, no matter how much I misbehaved, Grandma always stuck up for me. Grandma, did you love me or did you not understand me either? I don't know. How lonely Grandma must have been. In spite of us, I can be lonely even when you're loved by many people, since you're still not anybody's one and only. And Hanley, is she still alive? What's she doing? Dear God, watch over her and bring her back to us. Hanley, you're a reminder of what my fate might have been. I keep seeing myself in your place. So why am I often miserable about what goes on here? Shouldn't I be happy, contented, and glad, except when I'm thinking of Hanley and all those suffering along with her? I'm selfish and cowardly. Why do I always think and dream the most awful things and want to scream in terror? Because, in spite of everything, I still don't have enough faith in God. He's given me so much which I don't deserve. And yet each day I make so many mistakes. Thinking about the suffering of those you hold dear can reduce you to tears. In fact, you could spend the whole day crying. The most you can do is pray for God to perform a miracle and save at least some of them. And I hope I'm doing enough of that. Anne. Thursday, December the 30th, 1943. Dearest Kitty, since the last raging quarrels things have settled down here, not only between ourselves, Dussel and upstairs, but also between Mr. and Mrs. Von Don. Nevertheless, a few dark thunderclouds are heading this way, and all because of food. Mrs. Von Don came up with the ridiculous idea of frying fewer potatoes in the morning and saving them for later in the day. Mother and Dussel and the rest of us didn't agree with her, and now we're dividing up the potatoes as well. It seems the fats and oils aren't being doled out fairly, and Mother's going to have to put a stop to it. I'll let you know if there are any interesting developments. For the last few months, we've been splitting the meat. Theirs with fat, ours without. The soup, they eat it, we don't. The potatoes, theirs peeled, ours not. The extras, and now the fried potatoes too. If only we could split up completely. Yours, Anne. P.S. Bep had a postcard of the entire royal family copied for me. Juliana looks very young, and so does the Queen. The 3 little girls are adorable, and it's incredibly nice of Bep, don't you think? But we'll go ahead and end that portion there, a quick added notation. Some of the she was speaking in Dutch and they had notations underneath. Early on, she would say Ausnahmsweise. She's saying it's the only word that will do. Apparently means by way of exception. So she was actually saying, by way of exception, we're all getting on well together. Next, there was Himmelhach Jagzenzutode Berucht, which it says is a famous line from Goethe. On top of the world or in the depths of despair. So she's saying on top of the world or in the depths of despair certainly applies to me. And finally, she talks about her grandma hiding a terrible secret, and what it was, her grandmother was terminally ill. So that's why she didn't know how much she was suffering and the secret she was hiding. So yeah. That's some of what's going on. Her grandmother, who has already passed, visits her at night, and again in one of these kind of visions she sees, as well as again she sees a vision of Hanali. I don't know if they're necessarily all in her dreams or if she's having actual visual hallucinations of them. But yeah. So she's conquering her depression and stuff, but it's something she's working at. And plus, from the dates, we're hitting 1944 because we have whittled down to the end of 1943 with that last entry. So with the next one, we'll be getting into the year 1944. Yeah. We already know the Italian forces are out. Mussolini's gone. And so it's Hitler and the Nazis that they're still hiding from. You know, the perhaps without a doubt the primary antagonist of the Second World War. But yeah, she talks about trying to get along with everybody, trying to still have some semblance of the life she once had before everybody had to go into hiding. I mean, you could only imagine how a sudden departure from the life you're used to being forced to stay in the new situation indefinitely can really get to you. So, yeah. And she talks about some of the things Pym goes through, her father. So he's still struggling. And you can tell it's not so much that she hates her mother, but she definitely has a hard time loving her. But yeah. Getting into the year 1944, and of course, the war ends around mid 1945. So, yeah. But of course, they don't know how long the war will end up lasting. So for them, it's like just this waiting game. And the frustrations. They get on each other's nerves. But we'll go ahead and end this here. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.